I was very consistent. I've never missed a week in almost 3 years of podcasting. I was promoting each episode multiple times a week, and nobody was listening to it. And I was thinking, like, what could I do to show them that this is the information that they want?
Hello, Jill. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Now, I heard you on another podcast a while back, actually, and you were talking about something you termed the sneak attack method. And it was just so useful. And it's something I haven't heard anyone talk about before. And I think for anyone doing anything on social, especially if they're trying to promote something and not really having any joy, I think it's going to be really relevant to those people. So I guess it makes sense for you to just give yourself a quick intro first, so you can tell people about sort of who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so I'm Jill. I started my journey with my own podcast, which is called Sober Powered. And eventually that grew over the years to where I had the opportunity to start a network of shows. So I have 6 other top mental health shows in my network. And then people started asking me, like, how do you get people to listen? How are you marketing this? And I realized, like, I actually had some insight to share. And then I started sharing about my methods. And now I have a business podcast called The Grind. And I'm just trying to help podcasters. Like, the way you described it was perfectly, having no joy from your posts. Posting the same thing and seeing those same 2 likes come in and no comments, and it gets discouraging.
Yeah, very. I think we've all been there. So it'd be good to dive into the sneak attack method, but I guess it makes sense to start with maybe where you were initially, because you're exactly in that position, weren't you, where you were just being consistent and just not really having any joy.
Yeah, when I first started my show, I didn't know what to do. I just kind of started it and put it out there the same day I decided. And I saw online, like, okay, you make the new episode is out, and then everybody was talking about sound bites, and okay, I'll make some of those. And I started posting them on a brand new Instagram page, and nobody cared. And I'm like, that's okay. Once they realize this is exactly what they're looking for, they'll care. And I was very consistent. I've never missed a week in almost 3 years of podcasting. I was promoting each episode multiple times a week, and nobody was listening to it. And I was thinking, like, what could I do to show them that this is the information that they want? Like, people would be talking about, why can't I sleep when I first stopped drinking? What's going on? I literally have an episode on that. Like, I explain it to you in 15 minutes. You don't even have to have that big of a time commitment. Like, just listen. And I couldn't get them to give the show a chance. So that's how it started, was trying to convince people to listen. And then over time, it's evolved into a whole thing. And even now that my page is pretty big, I'm still trying to figure out ways to convince more people to listen and give it a chance and build awareness. But yeah, in the beginning, I did everything that I tell people now, please don't do that.
So how did you get started with this then? Was it advice you had? Was it just experimenting?
It was experimenting. So I was a biochemist, so I'm used to just kind of trying things and making tweaks and seeing how that impacts the result. So that's what I started doing. I took the new episode is out post and I would make one tweak. And then I'd give it about a month, maybe a little longer, and I'd see, did that have any impact? Usually the answer was no, or like a tiny bit. And then I'd say, okay, well, what if I tweak this? Then what will that do? And I would study other people's pages. I studied a lot of pages that didn't have podcasts, but that they just showed up randomly and their page was blowing up. And I was like, why is that happening? Why do people love their stuff? It's not even that good. I'm sure a lot of people have thought that. Like, why is their stuff so popular? It's not even good. And why don't they like mine? and I studied the way they formatted their post, and I tried to do something similar but with a podcast. And I mean, it took me a year and a half to figure it out, but eventually I did figure out the key is don't tell them it's a podcast, and then they'll look at your post and then you can go from there. But it took a long time of making minor tweaks before I could get there.
So yeah, I was going to say, it sounds like you did it very gradually, but it makes sense to kind of test and then see the results, test, see the results. But you touched on there that the key concept is not letting on it's a podcast. So I guess this is a good point to dive in and just talk about what the actual method is and what people should be doing, as opposed to promote.
Yeah, so it's called a sneak attack. So it's meant to be sneaky. So the only rule that you have to follow is don't tell people what you're promoting. Whether you're promoting a YouTube video, a podcast, your course, your services. I've helped people do this when they're coaches and they're trying to promote one-on-ones. If you just say, like, look at these great testimonials from my... Like, a lot of people are going to be like, nah, dude, I don't want to buy your thing. Like, goodbye. And they won't even look. So you can sneak attack for anything. The point is just don't tell them you're promoting something. Just pretend like it's a regular old nice Instagram post and they'll look at it. And the problem is always awareness and getting people to give things a chance. And once they give your post a chance, they might see like, oh, this is actually for me. This is really helpful. I am willing now to go somewhere else and either book the call, watch the video, listen to the episode, read the article, whatever, but you have to show them it's worth their time. The problem with what a lot of us do is we just kind of announce, like, you can get the value if you click the link in my bio and then go to this other place and listen to this 45-minute episode. Like, you'll get the value there. And we feel that we're providing value because the value is in the podcast, but the actual post has no value. So that's what I learned, is the actual post that you're, whatever it is, wherever you're posting it, that has to be valuable by itself.
So I get it's becoming more of a personal branding approach, I guess, isn't it? It's more, I guess Gary Vee would say, the jab, 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 right hook. It's more jab, 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 and just keep going.
Yeah, it's like a jab secret hook when they're not looking.
Yeah. I guess that's exactly it, isn't it? So, I mean, so the point is, I guess, to make sure you're always providing value in those posts. And I guess we can talk about the types of posts that you've seen work well and things like that. But how do people actually then find that podcast eventually, assuming they're engaged and they want to? Are you just tucking it away at the bottom of the you're putting it in comments? Are you tucking it at the bottom of the description? Where would you highlight that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So there's a few ways that you can do it, and I just mix it up. So you can either have it at the bottom of the caption. If you're doing a carousel, you can have it as the last slide of the carousel. If you're doing a reel, you can have it come on the screen at the very end of the reel. You can do a combination. Usually I'll do a caption, either last slide or end of the reel combo. But once they're committed to the post or they've watched the video and they're enjoying it, they're more likely to go do the thing that you want them to do, which is listen to the thing. So revealing it at the end is okay. And you'll have, most people won't. They'll just be like, okay, this was a good post. Thank you. Have a good day. But a good amount of people will go listen to your podcast or watch your video. And the people that don't do anything from there, a lot of them will follow you because the post was helpful for them or interesting or whatever. And then you gain the opportunity to convert them later. And that's been the biggest power of it. Like, someone doesn't see my posts and they're like, amazing, I subscribed to your podcast, this is the best thing ever. They see the post and they follow me, and they'll see the posts over and over and over and over for months. And then eventually they'll listen to the podcast, like 6+ months later of following me. I've had people who are dedicated followers that like DM me a lot. Like I recognize their name, and they'll send me a message that they heard me on another podcast and now they're excited to check out my show. So it's like they're not automatically going to convert, but if they're willing to hang out with you, now you can convert them. If it's just a boring soundbite or an announcement, no one's going to stay with you. They're going to look and just be like, ugh, and then leave, and maybe they'll never see you ever again for the rest of their lives. So the sneak attack also keeps them with you, so you can convert them slowly.
So it's about stopping people just scrolling straight past, isn't it? By offering value. When you first started doing this, do you remember what sort of following you had? Did you have much of a following at that point, or was it quite small?
No, it took me a year to get 6,000 followers, which some people might be like, I've been doing this for years and I don't have 6,000. But I was working every day, all day, every day. I was doing so many things to try to get people to follow me and notice me. And I thought that was great, like 6,000 at the end of my first year. And then I think in my second year, I ended with like 30-something thousand. And now I have 46, I think. But yeah, that first year is the hardest because you have to be consistent. You have to give away a lot of stuff for free and show up regularly and convince people that you're interesting. But once you get a little traction, it goes a lot quicker. But I recommend for people to just commit to a year of growth before you do other things. If you already have the audience, then the time shortens. But I started with 0, like a brand new page. So commit to a full year of growth, and then you can do so many things with that. And the experience that you gain from trying to grow your page, like the posts that you make in the first 3 months are going to suck compared to what you end up making at the end of the year. So we all need that experience by just posting and learning what people like and what they don't, and what we like and what's easier for us to make and how we are creative and what your branding looks like. So it takes time to work through that.
Do you remember how long, so when you first started using this approach, do you remember how long it took to get traction? Because I could just imagine people trying this, not giving it enough time, and then just, I'll give up, this isn't working either. Do you remember how long it took to kind of get that going?
I think so the very first type of post that I did was just a simple quote card. So just one image on Instagram, not a carousel. I would take a stat usually from my episode. Like the one that took off first was people with anxiety are 3 times more likely to develop a problem with alcohol at some point in their lives. And the episode was about alcohol, but it didn't say sober powered podcast episode whatever. It didn't say anything like that. It just said sober powered, and it got shared like crazy, and it got a lot of eyeballs over. And then I revealed at the bottom of the caption, go listen to the episode. But once I first started doing it, I think I got people to my page faster, but getting them to listen to the podcast was pretty slow. That took a lot of time, and I think one of the most annoying things about being a podcaster is people will ask you, like, do you have an episode on this? Do you have an episode on this? And it's like, just go scroll the catalog. Like, you're telling me you don't listen to my show. That's what you're saying. And you don't want to listen to it either. You just want one piece of information.
Unless you've got an episode on this.
Yeah, then I'll listen to that one and then leave.
Are you doing this mainly on Instagram, or have you found other channels are working well for you as well?
So I committed to just Instagram because my main podcast is for sober people, and they hang out a lot on Instagram. With my business podcast, I am trying to figure out where my home is. I think I'm going to commit to Twitter. and maybe LinkedIn, but it depends like where your people are. Like if I took my sober stuff and I put it on LinkedIn, that's not really going to work
Yeah. No.
because people might see it, 3 people, but the problem is if I like a sober post, everybody I've ever worked with in my life has now been alerted that I like sober stuff and have a problem with alcohol. So I wouldn't do very well over there. So it depends on where your people are hanging out. And then I would say like go hard on one platform. You can put it other places, like my Instagram posts go to Facebook, but I'm never over there ever. It's built up a small following, I think like 1,000 something people, but I'm never there. I go hard on Instagram, and it's difficult if you're trying to manage multiple pages or multiple social media platforms. I would just pick a home base, and then you can expand later when you're more comfortable.
Yeah, that makes sense. With people that want to give this a try, but they start posting stuff like this, think I'm going to offer value, but then they're tempted to oh, I've got this soundbite. Should I just throw this up? Oh, should I just mention the episode? Should I just do? Should they be mixing in things, or does that just risk people going, see ya? Especially with things like stories, I guess, where if they see that, they might just skip the rest of your story bites. So do you think that's just a bad move and just go value, value, value?
I love this question so much. I have 2, I think, important things to say. That when you post on social media, every post is an opportunity for someone to look at it and be like, why am I following this person? Who is this? And then they go and follow you, and then they never come back. And your posts need to be very consistent. They need to be on brand. I don't post like personal pictures. I don't post like a selfie of myself or like a vacation pic unless it's a story that has to do with sobriety. But you need to really stay focused on what you're trying to promote. Or people are going to leave. So if I keep posting my sneak attack carousels or educational talking head reels, people know that. They see something from me and they're like, oh, this is going to be good. If you start posting random stuff, people aren't as excited when they see you pop up. So if I was posting a picture of my cat sometimes and a picture of my husband, people wouldn't expect great things from me every single time. I would say whoever's listening to this, please make me a promise that you will never post a soundbite ever again for the rest of your life. I'm very anti-soundbite. I think they're the most boring things in the entire world. And there's a lot of reasons. I don't even have to listen to it or give it a second. I know you're promoting something and it's just like a teaser. I'm not interested in your little teaser with a cliffhanger at the end. And they're boring to look at. You have to click on it to get the sound to play. You can do it in stories. It's okay. I think it's just a waste of time to make them. A lot of times people pay other people to make sound bites. That's a waste of your money. Just never post them ever again. Instead, what would be more valuable is if you get on your stories and you're talking to your phone and you say, hey, I'm really excited because my episode with Jill came out today, and you saw me, I posted a soundbite a week ago, and Jill was telling me, like, don't ever post a soundbite again, and it was funny, and I hope you'll check out the episode. It was a great time. It's only 45 minutes. I think that's more valuable than a soundbite of something that I said. I think your interpretation of it or something you got out of it or why you liked it, people want to know our opinion. They don't want the little boring teaser. And I think we've come to recognize highly promotional content now because it's in our face all the time. Everyone's trying to promote something. And if you detect it as one of these highly promotional things, you just turn off to it and close your mind and leave.
I guess the example you just gave there about me jumping on saying, oh, I've just done this episode with Jill, although there is a hidden kind of promotion in there towards the end, I guess the point is it's useful as well. You're kind of telling people, look, good advice here, don't do this. So if you can take, I guess if you can take good snippets from an episode or something like that, do a video about that, make it a bit more useful rather than the promote just, oh, my new episode is out, go and check it out, and that's it. So it's more about just being promotional all the time.
Yeah, and we're in Riverside, which is really helpful because they let you make a reel. And those work well, even though they're promotional and you can see our microphones and you're clearly trying to get people to go listen to the podcast episode. For some reason, they do really well. And every time I do one, it does great. Sometimes the people will share it because it's a nice little clip of them. And even though you can tell it's promotional, it's still interesting. You can see the people, there's movement. Some people they'll be like, okay, well, I'm going to take my sound bite and put some B-roll over it. No, don't do that either. That's really boring. I've tried that too. Or like the drone footage, like 4K drone footage. It's boring. Just talk to the camera yourself if you don't have video of the interview. But people don't want all of that fanciness. I just haven't seen that be successful. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe someone is listening to this and they're like, those work for me.
But again, with something like Riverside, where you can take the images, flip them up, it's perfect for Reels or TikTok, whatever it might be. You're not just taking anything random; you're taking something useful again, and it's not talking about go and listen to the podcast. And yes, you might talk about that at the bottom of the caption, but and I guess you're doing the same. You're taking a useful part of an interview, then you're posting that. So again, it's value rather than just promote.
Yeah, the way that I imagine it is if whoever looks at it, if they never listen to my podcast ever for their entire life, was this a good, helpful post for them? Because some people also can't listen to podcasts, and they can read the captions instead and still get the value from the video, or they can get the value from the carousel and the text on there. But some people actually can't listen to podcasts. So I imagine them and I think, like, did I close the loop on the information here? I try not to give a teaser like, if you want to know the rest, if you want to know the actual answer, go here. I try to close the loop because that builds trust, and then people that never listen, they can still feel like they got something and they want to hang out with me. But I would think of it as closing the loop. Is this good enough on its own without the other piece of content?
Not an annoying cliffhanger. What about types of posts? I know you've touched on a couple, like quote cards and carousels. I'm guessing you've tried a lot, video and so on. What would you recommend that people use in terms of post type, and which have you seen work the best?
I think if you are really shy and you're new, I would say do a carousel. My carousels have been more helpful than anything else. Like, I've gained some of them flop, but my best ones, I've gained like 5,000 followers from a promotional carousel that's telling people to go listen to the episode. So carousels are a really easy way because you can look at the transcript. And now this is turning into like a Riverside promo episode, but Riverside lets you do transcripts for free now. So even if it's a solo episode or an interview, whatever, you can transcribe it, throw it in ChatGPT, get some quotes or summarize it or whatever, and then make your carousel. I try to take one piece of information and, again, close the loop. So present the whole story, and then if you want to learn more about this topic, go listen to episode blah, 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 and hopefully they go do it. But because you close the loop, it gets shared a lot, and you can make diagrams and little pictures of things. Quote cards with no carousel also work really well, and I know that posts are being prioritized again on Instagram to try to balance things out. If you are comfortable on video or you want to challenge yourself, which I think everyone should, I would get on video and just do what you would do on the carousel, but do it on a video. Like, it's literally the same information. I had a problem where people were stealing my content. It was so bad. It was so many people, like, all at once. They were just stealing from me and posting it as their own, or like covering up my branding with their own name, but it's still my brand colors, like it's obvious it's me, or redoing it as their own. And I was like, okay, content thieves, how do you like this? So I took exactly what I would put on the carousel and I said it. And I took the images and the diagrams that I would put on the carousel and I overlaid it on the talking head reel. So they can still steal it, but now they have to sit down and write it and take some more effort. So you can alternate like a carousel and then take the same information and say it on a reel and see which one works better. I think showing up on video is important, and you can't, if you want like to be recognizable and you want your brand to grow, you have to show up on video occasionally. But both of those are my recommendations: carousel and talking head reel.
With the talking head reel, would you say take an important part of the podcast and just talk about it?
Yeah, so mine is a lot of solo episodes. I actually do the grind the same exact way. I have interviews, but it's a lot of solos, and I would take one piece of information and teach it. So it's a 15-minute solo episode. There's a lot of content in there. But what's like the coolest thing you can teach people in 1 minute? Or like, can you give a high-level explanation in 1 minute and just do the whole thing? And you might be like, well, if I tell them the whole story, then why would they listen? But you're showing them like, wow, this person knows what they're talking about. I wonder what the other 14 minutes of the episode are like. So you're convincing people that you do have the information. If you don't have like a teaching podcast, then just sharing, like you could share something funny. If it's an interview, you could share what you have learned from the interview or your biggest takeaway. So it doesn't just have to be teaching. A lot of people will try to do this and they'll say like, on my most recent podcast episode, I just said, nope, everybody left. So you have to remember, like, don't ever say that. But there's a lot of different ways that you can teach, whether it's an interview or a solo.
That was one of the first things I thought, actually, was would you just go on and say, so I've just had an interview with blah 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 for my podcast, and then talking about the value. Actually, should you not be saying that at all? Just how would you talk about, I've just spoken with this person, or I've got this value from this person, I wanted to share it with you, without saying, oh, he's just been on my podcast, he or she?
I would say I was talking to this person, period.
Okay. Yeah.
I was talking to Pat Flynn about email marketing, and he was telling me all about the different ways that I could segment my list. I'm totally making it up. And this is what I learned about like how to segment a list or why it's important. Like, so I was talking to this person about whatever topic. This is the main thing that I learned. There's actually a whole interview on my podcast right now if you want to listen to the rest and you're interested in email marketing. Link is in my bio, or if you automate DMs or whatever, comment the keyword for the link. But yeah, I would just say I was talking to this person. And then at the end reveal, by the way, it's a podcast. Yeah. Lucky you. You can listen to more.
You mentioned automating DMs. Have you tried some of that? Have you been using ManyChat or something like that for that?
Yeah, I'm obsessed with ManyChat. I just started doing it and I am obsessed with it. It's so good.
Working well for you.
Yep, because when you say, like, I had an episode come out this morning about why we self-sabotage with alcohol. So later I'll make a post about it, and then I can say comment 144, and I'll send you the link to listen. Where before I would say go to the link in my bio, and those people would just be like, okay, I'll go listen. And some of them do. Some of them will probably say, I'll go listen later, and then they never do. But if you have them comment 144 to get the link, you're getting engagement on the post now. And they don't have to do any work. It's in their DMs. So I found that it pushes my posts a lot more because people want the link, even though I'm over here like, hey, you can subscribe and then you'll get the new episode every week. Like,
So where are you using that then? Are you using that just in talking head videos and then saying at the end, oh, comment this for the episode? Are you using it anywhere else? I was just curious as to how you're making the most of that.
everywhere. So wherever you're going to do your reveal for whatever the reveal is, a video, a podcast, a course, book a call, whatever, when you do your reveal, you can say, comment, join, and I'll send you more information. So do it along with the reveal. And I don't like verbally say it, I just have it come on the screen, but I just do it at the same time I'm revealing it.
So I guess you could do that at the bottom of captions, in the last carousel.
Yep.
Have you found any of those, and the talking heads obviously, have you found any of those get more traction than others in terms of the auto DM side of things?
I think the ones that get the best traction are when I will have a guest occasionally and I'll do the reel from Riverside, and then people will watch the whole clip and then it'll come on the screen, comment, whatever, and then they'll all comment. So I've found that those are working really well. I think I haven't done as many carousels lately because of content thieves, but yeah, it's something I'm still experimenting with because I only started doing it like 2 months ago, but I think Riverside Reels are really effective with it.
So ManyChat definitely worth giving a go.
Yes, 1000%. If you're not on it, it's not even expensive. You have to do it.
Yeah, I've been talking to a few people about ManyChat recently and hearing a lot of success stories with it. So I think it's definitely gets a thumbs up from a lot of people anyway.
Yeah, I wish I did it sooner, actually. I was very resistant. I'm like, I don't know how to set that up. Isn't that weird? If it's like a bot and people are going to think, no, just set it up. It's so worth it. Even if 3 people comment, those are 3 listeners that maybe would have said, I'll do it later. So it worked.
Yeah. Have you, so you've just started trying that, have you? And you find you're getting good traction from that?
Yeah.
Have you, something I was curious about actually was the approach you're taking now, as opposed to, you know, the promotional stuff before. Have you seen anyone else that has, you know, taken your advice on board, taking that approach, and they've been able to turn things around as well? Have you seen any good examples, success stories?
Yes. So my clients, obviously, gonna pitch them. But yeah, this is something that I teach people how to do themselves, and they are very successful with it. And I teach them, you know, how to do it in their own way. Some people listen to me, like where you discovered me on Pat Flynn's show, and they'll try to do it and find their own spin on it. But yeah, I've been seeing, since I started sharing or working with people, I have seen a lot of people do it. And sometimes people will, like, they'll join my network and I'll tell them, like, you got to get rid of those sound bites, man. And we'll start.
You're really anti-sound bites, aren't you?
I am. Sorry to all the companies that make sound bites. Sorry to all the editors that offer sound bites. I don't like them.
How have you seen like an average time of people starting to get some, what they'd maybe be satisfied with as decent traction? You mentioned earlier, look, you need to stick with this for like at least a good year and be consistent. Is that the sort of time frame you put on it, or have you seen varied times?
I've seen pretty instant benefits for my clients, like major jumps in engagement right away, big boosts in listens, just like the first time they ever tried that type of post. I'm not saying like if you go try it and you have 27 followers, like you're going to have this major. I think the people I'm talking about have a few thousand. So they had a little bit of a base. They were being consistent before. And then they changed their posting strategy now to the sneak attack. And they had a big engagement boost. And then over time, you do have to commit to adjusting it. I think it's important that just because one thing works for you, that doesn't mean it's the best way for you to do it. I think over time you have to look at what other people are doing and oh, that's interesting. Why did they format their post that way? Or here's a new type of video, or oh, they're automating their DMs. Maybe I should think about that. I think it's important to always iterate on your posts and improve them. But I've seen people have improvement right away. I've seen people that don't work with me, but they heard me explain it, and then they do what I always say not to do, where they put the podcast branding at the bottom. And then they'll message me and they'll be like, why isn't this working? I thought this was supposed to be helpful. And it's like, well, you're not sneak attacking anyone with the podcast at the bottom. So it depends on the person, depends on the size of their page. But if you do a true sneak attack and you have some small following, you should see a little bit of a boost. If you don't, just adjust the post.
From what you were saying earlier, maybe you can put the name down there, but just as long as it's not got podcast or anything like that. So, for example, I could put Nxt Level Online, but just don't make it obvious a podcast. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I would love if you could like try this once, or maybe I'll try it. Sometimes I speak at conferences and I'll do bad posts so that I can get the analytics to prove my point. And I'll do them like a couple days apart. But if you did with the word podcast and without the word podcast, I bet you would have a very, very different result. Because people see podcasts, they're like, I don't listen to that. Ugh. And then they're gone. So I bet it could be like even the one with podcast in it could be like a better post, and it would probably still die in the algorithm.
It'd be interesting to try that, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe I'll have to try that for the next time I talk about it.
Have you made any tweaks to your strategy recently that you've seen work well, or are you trying anything new just to experiment?
So ManyChat is the thing that I'm trying that is new. I think I'm also trying to go back to my carousels and make them more diagrammy. I feel like people like diagrams or graphs or cool things like that. So I'm trying to think of a way that I can incorporate that more in my posts to keep it interesting. Or like I talk about alcohol, so pictures of the brain always make people think it's a cool post. So I think just adding more visuals, that's what I'm focusing on.
And hopefully people won't steal them this time.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, that must be so frustrating.
They take things I make and then they cover the @soberpowered with their own. Like they literally screenshot it, take it in Canva, and cover up my branding. And the guy that did it, he was like, is this really a big deal? I'm like, yeah, it is.
Yeah, stop being lazy and do your own work.
So yeah, protecting from that as well.
Yeah. Before we wrap up, have you got any other tips that people might find useful?
I think my biggest tip is network. And I think when people, this is always a surprising thing, I think, for for my recent clients that start working with me, they think it's like strategy heavy and we're going to like adjust all these things. We do that, but I also really encourage them to network, because a lot of us are just like lone wolves, and we think we focus on our own page and our own followers and making great content, and we forget that social media is supposed to be social, and you can have 30 followers that are obsessed with your work share your post. If you have one other content creator share that post, that's so much more valuable, because that person has built an audience of people you want in your audience. And networking with other podcasters and doing swaps, if the listens match up. But I think networking and building those other relationships is so key. I got really, really busy in Q1 because I said yes to everything that came my way. And it was a hard lesson that I had to learn, that now I'm phasing out of Q1 and things are going to get better soon. But I didn't have time, and I stopped connecting with other people, and my reach tanked on Instagram, and it hurt my show, because a lot of people see my posts and that's either their reminder to go listen or how they discover me at all. And now I'm working on like, how can I build up these connections with the other creators again and become friends with them and share their stuff. So I think networking is something that a lot of people don't think is important, but try not to just focus on your own page and your own stuff. Help other people grow theirs and be nice, and they'll be nice back.
Awesome advice. Jill, I really appreciate you coming on. Where can people find you, follow you, learn more about, what you teach as well?
So if you struggle with alcohol, or you just want to see how I do my podcast, you can find me at Sober Powered anywhere that you look me up. If you're looking for more of this, go listen to The Grind, or you can find me at soberpoweredmedia.com if you want to check out my network or something.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jill.
Thank you for having me.